The story begins by talking about billionaire bosses who start getting involved with beautiful secretaries. A guy who got rich before even finishing high school and even hired a live-in maid. A billionaire girl who was involved in various relationships. The story asks if you'd like to experience a life like that. If you're facing problems you can't solve, or if you're just tired of your life. If that were the case, why not trade your life and let someone else handle your problems? Our protagonist is seeing all this in front of him and wonders what the hell is going on. The boy's name is Zhao Yun, and he's a junior at Binhai University. At that moment, a chubby guy named Yuan asks why he's standing there with his phone in his hand like an idiot. Did he happen to send a message to that girl? He asks if his friend doesn't see that screen in front of him, questioning if he's getting stupid. He says he wants to see the naughty messages he's been sending to girls. Meanwhile, Zhao Yun is startled that no one else sees the craziness on the screen. Then his friend opens the chat. He quickly sees that Zhao Yun sent a message to a girl saying he heard she was a troublemaker. As soon as she found out it was Yuan, she informed him that she was Counselor Chen Yura, and that he should meet her in the office. The chubby guy immediately said he was crazy for flirting with the Ice Queen. One started praying, and the other said it was nice knowing him. They were his friends Liu Chang and Chen Mao. Our boy snatches the phone from the chubby guy's hand and asks why he said she was just some single girl from school. His friends start teasing him, asking why he's so scared. Our boy says all he wanted was to offer his kind heart to warm up a girl's body. At that moment, he hears someone call his name. It's Counselor Chen Yuro, who says it looks like he's the rascal who sent that message. The poor guy starts trembling. She says he's going to have to learn his lesson for flirting with her like that. His friends say at least in his 18 years of life, he flirted quite a bit. Our boy wonders why his friends seem to be rooting for his demise. At that moment, a window appears asking if he wants to join the Life Swap Club. Once again, a damn window he couldn't understand why it was appearing. Trembling, he starts thinking about pressing yes. His life was already a mess, so why fear the unknown? The second he clicked, he was enveloped in blue energy. And in the next moment, he was in a completely different place. He thought he was dreaming, but theoretically, this should be the Life Swap Club. Then the girl appears and says he's not dreaming. She explains that now that he's a member of the club, he can swap lives with anyone, even animals. She was the administrator of this place, and her name was Sue. He asks if his life-swapping thing is for real. She says yes. Everyone there could see information about their partner and choose whom to swap lives with. A famous singer named Liu Miang with millions of fans was swapping lives with a girl named Mo Kin Yu, who's a famous fashion entrepreneur. Besides that, there was even an animal recognized internationally as a celebrity pet. Sue explains that when he finds a partner, he can see their information, decide the duration of the swap, and all the rules are extremely flexible. Our boy thinks that if he had a girlfriend, it would be like being cheated on. However, it doesn't really matter because he doesn't have one. Sue explains that at the time of the contract, they can limit memories and even actions that could be taken. Once signed, no one can violate those terms. He asks when he could go back, and she says he just has to think about the place and it would appear. She then tells him to find someone who wants to swap lives. Our boy says he might be handsome, but no one would want to swap lives with a broke guy like him. He then makes his profile public for everyone to see, which shows that he's unemployed, makes no money, and is in trouble. Immediately, everyone there is shocked, and some start smiling. A bunch of people already want to swap lives, saying they are second-generation rich or even world champions in certain sports. Some are movie stars, and others are influencers with over 200,000 followers. Zhao Yan doesn't understand why he's so popular being a normal guy in that place. He starts trying to escape the crowd, saying he needs to be more cautious. 3 minutes later, he calls someone to chat. The person introduces himself as Chen Han and says it would be an honor to be the first swap partner with him. That sentence sounded a bit weird, didn't it, buddy? Our boy sees that this guy is 32 years old and the most famous entrepreneur in the entire city of Binhai. Out of curiosity, he asks why so many people were interested in swapping places with his ordinary life. Chen Han explains that the most interesting people are those who are either extremely capable or extremely messed up. That's why people like him who have simple life problems are quite popular. Our boy quickly realizes that he's popular because his life is a mess. Chen Han explains that by making someone else's life better and helping them, they earn life points. These points can be used to buy anything from the club's store. Our boy asks if it's really anything, saying that's incredible. Chen Han says it's truly anything after all. There's a reason he made billions at such a young age. However, our boy just wants to live the life of a billionaire and not deal with solving problems. So he asks what happens if he doesn't resolve the issues he's supposed to handle in the other person's life. Chen Han says he just wouldn't earn any points and asks if they can sign the contract already. Our boy says if that's the case, let's do it. A girl appears between the two and says that once everything is confirmed, they just need to say main world. Our boy sees that this Chen Han guy has a huge list of problems, but he's too lazy to read through it all. Chen Han mentions it's quite the coincidence that the Chen and Hu issue is a problem in our boy's life because she's his sister. Our boy is shocked by the coincidence. At that moment, the assistant arrives and tells both of them to close their eyes and get ready. With that, the two fools are teleported. Someone is calling for President Shen, telling him to stop scaring her. Our boy slowly opens his eyes with a pounding headache. As soon as he sees a large figure in front of him, he wonders where he is. Secretary Xui thanks him for finally waking up. Our boy is trying to understand what's going on. The life swap had just started, but it was already way too intense. Xui asks what he was doing. She had knocked on the door for a long time and no one answered, which scared her. Our protagonist says he understands, but why did she take off some of his clothes and a little bit of hers? Perhaps due to the body swap, our boy was still feeling a bit uncomfortable. Xui explains that his body was so cold she tried to share some warmth to see if it would wake him up. Our boy starts recovering some memories. This 24-year-old secretary is dangerous and has been trying to seduce Chen Han for a long time. He then says they can continue and she asks, continue what? But the rascal is already enjoying this billionaire life. She approaches, saying that now that he's allowed her, she won't hold back. However, just then, someone knocks on the door, calling for the president. Blushing, our boy tells them to wait, but the secretary says the shareholders' meeting is about to begin. Realizing the situation, she apologizes, saying she thought he was getting ready for the meeting. Our boy explains that the room was so hot that he had to take off his shirt, and she helped wipe his sweat. The secretary says that's a very sensible thing to do. She places the documents on the table and says she's leaving. She runs out, slamming the door behind her. Sue says she got a fright, and our boy says they'll finish this later. He puts on his shirt, saying it's time to handle some business. According to Chen Han's memories, this meeting is an attempt to remove him from his position. However, this isn't his life, so he's just going to have some fun. It was time to meet these damn shareholders. At the meeting, everyone was wondering why he was still running the place and complaining that lately he had been ignoring everything about the company. Then our boy shows up, kicking the door open, making strange noises and walking like a fool. The shareholders were all confused, wondering what was happening. He throws himself into a chair and says that lately things have been so exhausting that his back is killing him. At that moment, a guy named He Ming says that in this shareholders meeting, he should be a bit more serious. And our boy already knows that this is the scumbag behind the attempt to oust him. He Ming says he was expecting a bit more seriousness in dealing with the shareholders. However, at that moment, he gets a shock. Brazenly, our boy jumps on the table and asks what he's going to do about it. Just wasn't his life anyway, so he wasn't afraid of anything and decided to go all out. He Ming says he's only proving that he has no manners. Our boy apologizes but says he's indeed a bit rude. He Ming then says he won't argue, but he hasn't been managing the company well and even lost the deal with the Binhai group. That's why he should be removed from his position since he's no longer fit to be president of the group. Our boy knows that this deal failed because an unknown company suddenly offered 5% more. That deal had been suspicious from the start, and He Ming's actions were making everything even stranger. Our boy steps down from the table and says that everyone there is making money because of the hard work he put into building this place. And now, because of a single problem and one negotiation, they want to remove him. He Ming tells him to step back because he's not in the mood for insignificant conversations. He announces that everyone should vote on removing President Chen Han. Immediately, all the shareholders raise their hands. And He Ming says that, as he can see, he'll have to step down from his position and won't remain president for much longer. Our boy goes to the chair and asks if that's really going to happen. He warns that if he loses the presidency, he will sell all the shares he owns and dismantle the Hanjiang Group. He's the one who built it all, and it's much easier to destroy than to create. The shareholders stand up, saying they know he holds the majority of the shares and that destroying everything would be foolish. The Hanjiang Group was still a success, so why blow it all up? Our boy says that they're the ones forcing him into this by doubting his abilities. Immediately, everyone, afraid of losing their invested money, starts saying that they always trusted him. You really couldn't erase such a successful trajectory because of one small failure. Our boy agrees, saying that shareholders like them can't be swayed by such little things. He Ming says that threatening the entire company's existence over a position is idiotic. But our boy just asks what he's going to do about it, and suggests that in return they should propose that He Ming take a break since he seems overly stressed lately. The others agree, saying that for him to have come up with such an idea, he definitely needs some rest. At that moment, He Ming starts trembling, calling them a bunch of two-faced hypocrites. Our boy tells Secretary Xu to prepare the documents so they can begin the voting process. 5 minutes later, everything was approved. Our boy tells He Ming he can go home and rest in peace. He Ming rushes toward him, saying he's not sick. The other shareholders intervene, and the police arrive to stop the madman. Javian says that poor guy, his mental state was clearly disturbed, so it's best if he stays home for a while. He's escorted out, but he squeals it won't end like this. And the protagonist asks why the others aren't saying goodbye to their colleague. Everyone waves, saying they'll remember him forever in their hearts. The poor guy even spits up blood. Our boy says he worked so hard that he's spitting blood from all his effort at the company. He definitely deserves a break. A while later, Soo says that now that Yiming has lost his position, the vice president role is vacant. He announces to all the shareholders that they should realize he's looking for someone who will be perfect for the job. Obviously, the greedy ones are all eager to become the new vice president. They decide this is the perfect opportunity to show their worth. Our boy realizes that dealing with shareholders wasn't as hard as he thought. One of them says that this Shanghong company is the one that stole the deal they had made. Everyone says they couldn't have planned everything for so long just to let a scoundrel like that steal it all. Zhao Yan tells them not to worry, he'll handle it. Everyone seems confident, saying they can always count on the president. But obviously, our protagonist has no idea how to solve this problem and just wants to enjoy the luxurious life a bit more. He then declares that the meeting is over and everyone can leave. People seem excited that the vile vice president is finally gone. Our boy turns to Sui and says he has important things to do, so cancel everything scheduled for the next 2 days. Additionally, she should investigate this Shanghong company a bit. She says yes, and our boy comments that she's very obedient. She tells him to be careful or others might notice the situation. She wonders if her good girl charm has finally worked. But our boy doesn't miss a beat and says they'll need to find a discreet place soon to discuss their relationship in depth. With that, she leaves. And our boy's eyes are on the prize. This billionaire life was really fun. The scene shifts to the International Hotel in the city of Binhai. A guy speeds by in a red car. Of course, who else could it be? Our boy, who went to the best hotel in the city. Everything there was incredibly nice. But of course, it was also very expensive. However, being expensive wasn't the hotel's fault, it was his fault for having been poor. Already feeling full of himself, he's tossing keys to the chauffeur. It was time to start enjoying this rich life. As soon as he walks in, the girl at the front desk asks if it will be the usual. Our boy says no, today he wants to order for himself. But at that moment, someone calls him brother. When he turns around, he sees the protagonist and his sister, wondering what he's doing there. Our boy is shocked by this awful coincidence and says he just came to grab something to eat. The hand is already coming down. The scoundrel losing his body introduces himself as Zhao Yan and says he's a student of Miss Yuho. She is impressed by how confident he seems, and our protagonist decides to take advantage of the situation to have a little fun. He introduced himself as her brother and said that the girl was spoiled with a bad temper and that it was hard to understand her emotions. Ken Han in his body was a bit confused. She asked why her brother was saying such unnecessary things, but he warned our boy that what he said was actually quite mild. Ken Han was fuming with rage that this scoundrel was talking about his sister in public. He said that in reality, she was a very kind, loving, and understanding person. Our boy responded that he understood and mentioned he had dinner plans, so his sister shouldn't treat the poor guy badly. With a big smile, he left to enjoy himself. Yuhu thought her brother was acting strangely today. Smartly, the guy said he was sure those words weren't directed at her but at him. She was so beautiful and smart that her brother must have been afraid other people would get close to her, so he said that to make him stay away. Yuhu said he truly had an open mind to interpret things that way, and she thought those words had even moved her a little. In the VIP room, they called President Chen's name. The girls wanted to know if tonight's dinner was delicious. Of course, everything was extremely fancy and top tier. He said it wasn't bad, but it would be even better if 2 people who wanted to earn 10,000 yuan did a little dance. Immediately, they obeyed, saying it was good to have fun. Our boy was impressed by how easy it was to get people to do whatever he wanted with money. It was just a pity that his friends couldn't see the life he was living. One of the girls approached and asked what he was thinking about so much. He said he was feeling a bit tired and needed her help to relax. She asked if he was asking for that, and he said no, he just wanted to fetch a flute and start playing so he could feel calm. The crazy girls said they were sad. They thought it was another chance to earn money. Meanwhile, back at Binhai University, the friends asked what happened after talking to the Ice Queen. Ken Han, in our boy's body, said they were brave to ask that after they messed things up for him. Just then, someone passed by asking if that wasn't a Rolls Royce in front of the entrance. Ken Han was completely confused, and at the front, a bunch of cars was arriving. Everyone was shocked by the amount of money parked there, and the license plate didn't lie. Of course, it was the protagonist who had brought the fool's car. The guy even brought an entire entourage. The friends recognized Chen Han as a famous entrepreneur and wondered why he was heading their way. The girls were all impressed, saying he was so tall and handsome. Meanwhile, the real Chen Han wanted to know what that kid was planning. Our boy walked up to his own body. He stopped in front of the poor guy and kneels, saying he couldn't manage the company anymore and needed him to come back. The real owner of the body wondered what kind of ridiculous drama this kid was planning. He had negotiated many times in the club, but never imagined he'd meet someone so shameless. The friends started yelling at Zhao Yan, asking why he always pretended to be poor. They began shaking the poor guy, asking why he had been hiding all of this. The chubby friend, on the other hand, said now that he knew, it'd be good if he treated his friends well. Our boy was thrilled. Meanwhile, Chen Han was furious that this lunatic was faking everything, and now the situation had gotten complicated. But our boy was on cloud 9. Now everyone would believe he was an incredible person. Yuru, observing the situation, found it strange. This Zhao Yan was more mysterious than she had thought. The guy said he really was a rascal, and our boy told him to hurry back to the company and inherit everything from them. The guy told him to get lost, and obviously they left like a pair of fools. The body's owner was angry that he'd made a deal without the proper rules with this arrogant kid. Seeing his irresponsible behavior, he couldn't even imagine what he had done with his body. The friends were all impressed that the most influential entrepreneur in the city seemed to be obeying one of their friends. Back home, his sister approached and asked why he was showing so much respect to Zhao Yan. Our boy said that, in fact, that guy was a genius who had been giving him various business tips, which is why he had been successful. The sister was impressed. She always thought her brother was a genius, but apparently it was Zhao Yan behind it all. Considering the company's timeline and the boy's age, he must have been a genius since he was 15. She never imagined there was such an extraordinary guy in the world. She approached Zhao Yan, saying he would have to tell her more about this friend of his, but he just turned and said he had to go to a charity auction, so he didn't have time to talk. Obviously, he was terrified because his sister was insisting on a conversation. He ran off in a panic, and she was left wondering why he was acting so strangely. In the next scene, he's speeding through the city. Secretary Xu says she never imagined she'd be invited to a gala dinner by his side. However, the boy is cold and simply says he brought her to work and asks how the investigation is going. She says she discovered that 80% of the shares of the company that won the contract against them belonged to Yiming's younger brother, the guy who lost his position earlier. They arrive at the dinner, and our boy finally understands everything Yiming had been doing. Now the only thing left was to get some evidence to put an end to his plans. As they walked around the venue, everyone was complimenting him, saying he looked as impressive as ever. At that moment, she introduces a man in front of him, the guy with whom he should have closed the deal he ended up losing. Then the announcer says that since it's a charity banquet, they can start with their donations. Several people started donating between 500,000 to 5 million. But the madman immediately made a donation of 30 million. Everyone turned around in shock. He even said that all of this donation came from the great Mr. Zhao Yan. The shingless guy just wanted to spend money since it wasn't his. People started wondering who this Zhao Yan was, and some commented that he seemed to be the person behind Chen Han's success. Stu calls him daddy, and the rascal is just trying to boost the advantage of his real body. The announcer then says he'd like to thank this Mr. Zhao Yan for the largest donation of the night. And the bald guy, seeing him spend so much money, assumes this Zhao Yan must be a very influential person. Since the contract wasn't signed yet, he had a chance to turn things around. He approaches to talk about the billion-dollar contract, and our boy says that 5% of that would be these 30 million. He planned to make a good investment in their company, but they could still proceed with the partnership with their friends. The bald man says it's not too late since the contract hasn't been signed and suggests they discuss it further. But our protagonist says that Zhao Yan and his body doesn't like traitors. The bald guy knows Yiming messed up in the meeting and says he understands very well what he means. Indeed, a partnership with them might be much better, but our boy says he won't refund the 30 million. The bald man says he's being underestimated, minus 30 million is nothing to him, and suggests they sign the contract right away. However, our boy comments that in doing so, the company they were about to close with was preparing a ceremony for no reason. The bald guy asks why he's bringing that up. Our boy says they could let them continue preparing the ceremony, and on the day of the event, he could announce that he's actually closing with his company. The bald guy thinks it's a bold plan just to get revenge on the others, but he really has no other option. He agrees, saying it's fine since he wants to mess with that scoundrel Yiming anyway. With that, they toasted to a relationship that would last forever. The two clink glasses while Xu congratulates him and feeds him food. Some founders were asking to meet the legend who donated 30 million named Zhao Yan, but he just commented that the boy doesn't like to be bothered. Everyone thought Chen Han didn't want anyone else to get in touch with Zhao Yan. Meanwhile, someone kicked a table. It was a fool Yiming who had arrived home fuming with rage after losing his position. His brother-in-law, Xiuping, tells him to relax since soon enough he'll become president of Changhong. Besides, tomorrow was the day to sign the contract. He could reveal the truth and make Chen Han look bad in front of everyone. Yiming responds that it's not a bad idea and suggests they invite the press so everyone can witness the humiliation. Tomorrow, that scoundrel Chen Han had better be ready to be embarrassed. Then we move to the next day. Bottles and clothes are scattered on the floor, and our boy wakes up, saying that he worked a lot during the day but worked even harder at night. Luckily for him, this guy didn't have a girlfriend or wife, so he could do whatever he wanted without worrying. He lightly slaps Xu's face, telling her to wake up. It's time to go to work. She clings to him, asking if after yesterday's successful negotiation, he's ready to humiliate the traitor Yiming. He says yes, yesterday was indeed a lucky day. At school, everyone found out that Chen Han had donated 30 million. The real owner of the body obviously wasn't happy about this. He was wondering how he was going to fix this mess. Now this scoundrel had really messed things up for him. Everyone in the class found out that when Chen Han donated, he said it was on behalf of the Yuan family, and the friends were all sucking up to him. But he was desolate. He had never donated more than 5 million in his entire life, and this scoundrel went and spent 30 million in one go. Even the professor heard about it and said he should say something encouraging to the class. He said he was just a bit unlucky, and that it was a small contribution that didn't need to be mentioned. The professor threw his arms up, saying that this was truly a kind and noble person. Everyone in the room applauded while he thought to himself that this Zhao Yan was truly shameless. He had never met a scoundrel so full of tricks like him. His sister, however, was impressed with Zhao Yan, saying that he was much kinder than her brother. He quickly noticed the look in her direction and wondered if this girl had fallen for Zhao Yan. Meanwhile, our boy was sneezing repeatedly. Apparently, some bastard was cursing him. Chuxi was startled, asking if he was okay and wondering if it was her fault for stealing the blanket last night. But our boy said it must just be some beautiful girl thinking a lot about him. She pinched his cheeks, telling him to stop talking nonsense. He replied that he was just joking and told her to stop being jealous and keep a positive attitude. She stormed off, thinking that last night he hadn't dared to say anything she didn't like. At that moment, she took a call. It seemed Zhoping, Himing's brother-in-law, was about to arrive. She left the tea prepared and said she would leave first. Apparently, it was our boy who had asked Zhaoping to come, who then asked why he wanted to see him. Our boy got straight to the point and said he knew Zhao was holding 80% of the shares that belonged to Himing, and he asked what Xu thought about making those shares his own. Zhaoping told him to keep dreaming if his plan was to stir discord between him and Himing. But Zhao Yan, of course, said he didn't need to stir discord, as it seemed Himing didn't trust him since he hadn't given him any shares. What would happen if Himing suddenly disappeared and lost everything? Zhaoping said that if that happened, all the shares would go to his sister. Our boy asked if, with Himing out of the picture, he couldn't convince his own brother. Zhaoping knew this was possible. However, he wanted to know why our boy wanted to help him. The protagonist simply said he hated traitors and asked if Zhu really wanted to be Himing's dog forever. Zhaoping knew that for the last 10 years he'd been obeying this guy but hadn't made any progress in life. It was long overdue, and he decided to accept the deal to gain the 80%. Our boy then wished them both a successful partnership. However, what Zhaoping didn't know was that our boy had been recording everything. Now that he had this video of Zhaoping, he had him in his hands. At that moment, Sue rushed in, saying they had a problem. The video of them entering the hotel last night had already been posted online. Our boy asked what the problem was then. After a business discussion at night, he had simply paid for his employee to stay in a hotel so she could rest, and they reviewed everything that happened. Sue asked if his wife would believe that excuse. Suddenly, our boy was in trouble and asked what wife she was talking about. Sue yelled, saying it was obvious, the wife he had always had. Our boy was shocked and wondered why he had no memory of being married. He probably set a rule in the contract not to have memories of this woman. But then he thought, why should he care about this anyway, since it wasn't his life? Trembling, he told her to relax, that it wasn't a big deal. He started dancing anxiously, eager to get back to his own body and leave this mess for Chen Han to fix. Xu then said that given the situation, his wife wouldn't want her to be his secretary anymore. He told her not to worry about her job. He'd just recommend her to Zhao Yan. At that moment, a wife's call came in. He told himself not to panic, but the poor guy was trembling all over. When he answered, asking what was up, he was immediately scolded by his wife, who said it was no wonder he was always offering to pay for her trips abroad. He angrily shouted that he was in an important meeting, and they would talk in person later. Sue was impressed, seeing how clearly this guy was controlled by his wife. Meanwhile, Zhao Yan was just coughing. The scene shifts back to Chen Han's mansion. His sister arrives home and says she wanted to know a bit more about Zhao Yan. He asks why she's so curious about the boy. She had just gotten home and was already asking about him. Was she perhaps interested in him? She said it wasn't like that at all. She just wanted to know more about her student. She told him to stop stalling and tell her more about the boy. Our boy sighed and said the boy was extremely intelligent and well-mannered, had an aesthetic physique, and worked very well. The sister said it looked like he was trying to win Zhao Yan's favor by selling her out. He said he would never do something like that. It was just that Zhao Yan was amazing. He then asked about his wife. After all, she had been away because they had fought and she had gone to her family's house. At that moment, he felt desolate. His wife had been away because they had fought, and yet he had gotten himself into this mess. Then he received a call from someone asking if he would attend the Chang Hong Company's contract signing ceremony. Of course, he was very eager, since they were dying to show off to him. The day of the big ceremony arrives. Stu, standing next to him, asks why he wanted to attend Chang Hong's event. He explains that a great show was about to happen soon. However, everyone was wondering what the people from Hanjin Group were doing there. Then the announcer invited Chang Hong's president to enter. Himing appeared, welcoming everyone. Everyone immediately recognized him as a former employee of the Hanjin Group, and Himing said the most special person there was the current president of Hanjin Group. Our boy simply replied that he was looking forward to his performance. At that moment, Himing welcomes Mr. Liu, who was responsible for the entire negotiation. Liu takes the microphone and says that indeed, it was a good negotiation he made with the Hanjin Group. Confused, Himing leans in and says the deal was made with Chang Hong Group. Everyone is a bit puzzled, wondering if he mixed up the names or if he really signed with Hanjin. He apologizes and says he'll clarify. He shouts for everyone to hear that the Binhai group made the deal with Hanjin group. At that moment, everyone whispers that Himing is making a fool of himself, and it seems that Chen Han had orchestrated a plan. Stu and our boy are laughing, saying they never expected the fool to react like that. Himing turns to Liu and says he'll lose all credibility if he does something like this. But Liu responds that their deal was only verbal, so he's not risking anything. Now it's time for President Chen Han to take the stage. Our boy spins around and introduces himself. He walks up to Himing's face and tells everyone to applaud the man who sponsored this day. The respect he had for Himing was as endless as the amount of money he was stealing from the companies. A lot of shareholders are in that meeting, and they know the shares of this company are going to rise, so they are already eager to pull their money out. Himing says it's all slander because there's no evidence. However, someone yells that they can confirm these accusations. It's Zhou, who tells Himing to stop pretending because the authorities already had all the data. At that moment, the police arrive and say he's being charged with multiple frauds. Himing is then taken away, cursing Zhou, calling him a wolf in sheep's clothing. Zhou thinks to himself that it's Himing's fault for being so dishonest. And at that moment, our crazy boy shouts for everyone to hear that the mastermind behind all of this was Mr. Zhao Yan. People are starting to get skeptical that it's always this kid behind everything. He then says he'll cover the expenses and for everyone to have fun. The scene shifts back to the Hanjin group. Our boy is obviously feeling very smug. Zhao says that their cooperation has ended. So what does he want to discuss? Our boy asks what he means by ended when it's only just begun. He tells him to take a look at this video. Zhao watches the moment he says he's going to screw over Himing so the shares go to his sister and he'll keep everything. And he asks the protagonist what he means by showing him that video. Zhao Yan questions if he really thinks his sister would let him be the owner of the company if she saw a video like that. He'd probably go from vice president to bike thief. Zhao knows he's in deep trouble now and asks what the scoundrel wants. Our boy says it's pretty obvious. He'll have to transfer all the shares of Chang Han. He clarifies that they wouldn't go to him but to Zhao Yan, and of course he gets some money. Zhao realizes he's gone from a sinking ship to an even worse one. The problem is that he doesn't have many options now as he's lost support in the city. He responds that he understands and asks what he needs to do next. Our boy tells him he just needs to get his sister to sign the contract and it'll all be settled. Zhao says he wants to see the money first because the people in this city are very cunning. Our boy pulls out a card with 10 million and says the last 6 digits are the password. Zhao asks if he isn't afraid that he'll take the card and disappear. Chen Han warns that doing that would cause him problems with Zhao Yan, which he wouldn't recommend. He leaves saying that if he does his job well, the master might even meet him, which would be a golden opportunity. Now that he was about to receive a multi-billion-dollar company, life was getting interesting. It had been 6 days since he swapped bodies. Fu asks how he managed to convince Zhao, and he says it's all thanks to Zhao Yan and his planning. She announces that from now on, she'll be working for Zhao Yan, and besides that, she'll help manage Chang Hong, working 72 hours a week. She's thrilled to work for someone Chen Han respects so much. She says she doesn't mind working 72 or even 69 hours, if you know what I mean. At that moment, a meeting is taking place at Chang Hong. Chang Hong himself thought the company would go to Zhou Ping's sister, but then our boy barges in, pushing everyone aside. The guard apologizes, saying he couldn't stop the madman. They stare at each other. Chang Hong asks why Mr. Chen is interrupting his meeting. Our boy replies that he doesn't need to worry about this meeting anymore since he won't be dealing with it. He snaps his fingers and tells Sue to hand it over. She then hands over the paperwork for the shares. He says that all the shares of Chang Hong have been transferred by Zhao Yan and he's here as his representative. The guys already know that if the shares were transferred, it means they have a new boss. And our boy announces that from now on, Miss Sue will be running this place. A second later, he tells everyone to welcome the new vice president. She's beaming, glowing with pride, and our boy tells her to do her best. He says he'll bring in some elite personnel to help her, and besides that, in a few days, she'll get to meet Zhao Yan, so she better not mess up and embarrass herself. All rejuvenated, she says she'll do her very best. At that moment, the phone starts ringing. It's the wife saying she'll arrive tomorrow and he better have an explanation. However, our psychopath responds that he's never explained himself to anyone in his life and tomorrow won't be the first time. As he thinks to himself, helping Chen Han gain some authority in his marriage was a favor. He doesn't even need to thank him. A week had passed, and it was the end of the first life swap. Our boy was back in his body, feeling a bit confused about everything that happened. Chen Han, of course, appeared with fury on his face. Our boy just smiled and said it had been a while since they'd seen each other. Chen Han only responded that in all his time there, he had never met someone as shameless as this kid. Our boy thanked him for the compliment and said that even his friends say he's a great actor. He approached Chen Han and told him not to be so angry, asking him to share a little about his time in the club and how many members he'd swapped lives with. But Chen Han just told him to stay away. He said he was going to check his points and there was no need for him to come along since he hadn't completed anything. But our boy insisted, saying he just wanted to take a look. When they arrived, a treasure chest-like thing appeared filled with floating items. One of the pieces of equipment caught our boy's attention. Ken-han explained that yes, there were many incredible treasures there, but since he had just arrived at the club, he didn't have access to any of them. Ken-han had completed our boy's life, not only resolving the issues with his sister, but also turning him into a campus celebrity. The 5 points he earned were a great success, and it had been 4 years since he had earned that much. Our boy asked how to check the screen to see what he had earned, but Chen-han told him to give up on that. It didn't make any difference, and it would be a waste of time. However, Zhao Yan replied that the world is full of surprises, and you never know what might happen. At that moment, Chen-han froze for a second. He was startled and asked if Zhao was really a beginner. He hadn't just completed a billion-dollar deal with an international company, but had also removed a spy from within it. Chen-han, now alone, asked how Zhao had earned 10 points and accomplished all that. He was furious, saying that because this scoundrel was a student, he had to work his butt off just to earn those few points. Our boy said that Chen-han's life was actually easy. He earned those points without even trying. For him, living with billions was easier than living as a kid. Ken-han admitted that this scoundrel really was some kind of genius, while our boy was feeling on top of the world. The chubby guy told Chen-han not to exaggerate, it was just 10 points. But Chen-han said it was the kid's first negotiation. Now the chubby guy was confused, saying that this scoundrel beginner really changed people's lives. Everyone was impressed that a student had closed billion-dollar negotiations. Our boy said those challenges were so easy he solved them without even trying. All he wanted was to enjoy the life of a billionaire, but he didn't think it would be that easy to fix everything. At that moment, Chen-han came over and kicked him, saying, "Skill over luck." He left while our boy wondered what he could buy with 10 points. Just then, Administrator Sue appeared, saying he could get quite a bit with that. She congratulated him and said she never expected someone like him to be so talented. He said he needed to get to know the club more, and she said she'd give him a tour, after which he could decide what to buy. The building was like any other, with a cafeteria, places to sleep, and areas for the staff. In the item room, he could search for any specific item, and if he couldn't find it, he could ask the staff for help. He then found himself in a room, and with those points, decided to buy something to strengthen his body. He spent 5 points to buy a body enhancement agent. Back at home, Chen-han grabbed his phone to call his wife, thinking she must have relaxed after the problem they had. What he found strange was that her number had been deleted. Luckily, he remembered it and called, feeling a bit embarrassed, asking how she was. Immediately, he was scolded, with her complaining that he blocked her number after publicly cheating on her. Before he could say anything, she hung up, saying she'd arrive tomorrow. Ken-han knew this was Zhao Yan's doing again. He called back, apologizing, and she asked, "Where's all that courage you had when you said you never explain yourself to anyone?" Then she hung up on him again. He swore he'd get revenge on that scoundrel Zhao Yan. At that moment, his sister entered the room, asking why he was yelling so much in the middle of the night. He grabbed her, asking if he had done something wrong to make his wife so mad. She said no, and he relaxed a little. Then she explained that at most his wife would kill him as soon as she arrived. He asked her to explain what he had done so wrong. She said it was obvious. He went to the hotel with his secretary, and the photos were leaked for everyone to see. At that moment, he realized the problem was much bigger. Yuro said he looked pale and asked if he wanted to see a psychiatrist. He said he was going to kill that scoundrel Zhao Yan, and she asked what Zhao had to do with it, especially considering that he had previously told her she should invest in the boy. Ken-han was mentally wishing for a sword to go cut that kid's throat right then and there. Meanwhile, somewhere else on campus, our boy shows up looking stylish in a field of fire. There's some mischief going on in the background, and our boy wonders what he's doing there. At that moment, a daring couple gets startled, and he says not to worry, he's already leaving. Suddenly, someone runs by. It's the 3 friends, saying that Zhao Yuro's class is about to start, and they can't miss it. Our boy realizes that apparently Chen-han's brother had really been substituting for her all along. The fools arrive, all out of breath. Dangerously, she asks where Zhao Yan is. The chubby friend doesn't hold back and tells the truth, saying the boy was watching a couple having an adventure in the woods. However, Yuro says she doesn't believe a boy like him would be interested in such things. The guys say that she's clearly disillusioned. She immediately confronts the others, asking why they were late as well. Right then, our boy, looking like a fool, asks why no one is entering a classroom. The guys tell him he's way too relaxed for someone about to be punished for being late. As soon as he enters, she asks why he was late. He doesn't know what happened earlier, so he just says he overslept. She tells him to take it easy and not study so late, then says to get inside because class is about to start. The guys wonder what's going on. Why was the Ice Queen being so gentle with that scoundrel? At that moment, our boy gets a call from Secretary Xue. He tells her not to worry. He'll visit the new company tomorrow. Obviously, he knew he needed to start protecting himself because things were going to get crazy. The guys complain that our boy is on his phone, but the teacher says his grades are good enough to allow it. Our boy approaches her and says that, as she knows he's a very studious young man and would like to ask some questions tonight. The friends think to themselves that he's no longer pretending and is going straight for it. She replies that tonight isn't possible because her brother wants to talk. He tells her brother is going to be so busy that he won't have time for any conversation. She says that if that's the case, they can talk later. A while later, the friends are eager to know what dirty tricks he's been using. Meanwhile, at the Hanjin group, Chen-Han arrives, hoping the scoundrel hadn't caused a disaster there. He greets the secretaries, who all seem normal, and he feels relieved. Someone knocks on his door. A girl named Xiao Liu enters and he asks where Sui is. She explains that Su and some authorized people went to another company. He asks where they went, already suspecting it's one of Zhao Yan's tricks. She says everyone went to the Chen-Han group and that they had asked Zhao Yan for help managing it. He then asks who she took along. She explains that they took the sales department and the future negotiations department. Chen-Han slams his fist on the desk, saying the scoundrel was even more ruthless than he thought. Xiao Liu asks if he's having problems with Zhao Yan and tells him to be careful or the company could go bankrupt without him. Chen-Han immediately fires her. She asks why and he says he'll give her a year's salary and tells her to leave. At that moment, he gets a call from his wife saying she's at the airport. The poor guy runs out in a panic, saying that after he deals with this, he'll handle that cursed kid. Meanwhile, in front of our boy's new company, Sethu and several secretaries are waiting to meet Zhao Yan, eager to see what kind of luxurious car he'll arrive in. However, our boy shows up casually, already noticing that Sui had prepared a grand ceremony. People find it odd that he arrived in a taxi. They start complimenting him, saying he's truly a man of the people who doesn't care about showing off. Shu introduces herself and says she'll show him the entire Chen-Han group. With that, they walk around touring the place. A while later, she asks if he has any orders. He tells her to buy a house and a car for him and put them under the company's name. She asks if he's going to stop hiding his money. Our boy says he just turned 20 and no longer needs to hide his wealth. It was a family rule. She asks if he's going to use all his power now, and he says that's exactly what he's going to do. She says that's perfect and reveals that the Chen-Han group is in a huge crisis. He had no idea about this and asks what kind of crisis. She explains that everything had been established with the support of Chen-Han's company, but a few minutes ago he called and said he wouldn't be sending them anything. Our boy realizes that unfortunately that guy still has the power to mess up his plans. Sue says she has no idea why he got so angry out of nowhere, but the problem is that their company has many ties with his. He says if there's a problem, there's a solution and asks if they can still buy the house. She says that's simple. At least until next month, they'll still have money. He says that's perfect then, and that he'll find a way to deal with the crisis and she should deposit $1 million into his account. She says she trusts his talent and will handle it. She's impressed by how calm he seems considering he's about to lose the entire company. Meanwhile, at Benhai Airport, Chen-Han is waiting like a dog for his wife. He knows women like to be flattered. A week had passed and now Xinru, the dangerous one, was back. Chen-Han, like a fool, says that he's glad she's back. She just frowns and says he's grown really bold. Scared, he says he'll explain, but she kicks him, telling him to explain it to her foot first. The poor guy realizes he's not getting out of this one. He takes a hit right in the head and admits he knows he was wrong. When hit, he falls to the ground like a fool with a bucket on his head. People at the airport are startled by the noise. Xinru says it seems he forgot that she's a black belt in Taekwondo. Everyone starts recording, shocked that a man is being beaten so badly by his wife in broad daylight. As she tells him to go home, the poor guy swears he'll get his revenge on Zhao Yan. But the scene changes to a cafe. Yuro says he was right. Her brother canceled their plans for the night. He replies that he figured, as her brother is a very busy man. He orders for both of them, and she's impressed that he knows everything she likes. Our boy says he has a talent for reading people. But in truth, he just stole all the memories from her brother, didn't he? She says she's impressed and wants to know how she and her brother met. As they're on this romantic date, someone is watching them from a distance. In the end, she says it was a wonderful evening, and he invites her to his apartment, saying he wants to show her how his cat can do somersaults. She says she'll see that another day, and our boy offers to walk her home instead. Outside, it's a bit cold and eerie, but our boy reassures her, saying there's no need to worry, he's there. Of course, the fifth-generation gangsters show up, right? Shall we summarize this? She throws herself into his arms, saying she's scared. The most poorly designed thugs of the entire series jump at them. Having consumed the body-strengthening potion, he easily dodges. He kicks one of them, and the guy falls to the ground like a fool. The others are stunned. He takes down another one, and the rest flee. The beating was so bad that Yuro even feels sorry for the thugs. However, the man watching from behind the tree knows Zhao Yun is a member of the Life Swap Club. A crowd starts gathering, recording the fight that's happening. Our boy grabs Yuro's arm and tells her they'd better get out of there. They spot someone getting out of a taxi and decide to take that one. As soon as they get in, he gives the driver Yuro's home address. But suddenly, the driver seems to be going the wrong way. He says he doesn't know what's happening. It's like the car isn't responding. Our boy suggests he stop before there's an accident, but the driver replies that he's not in control of his own body. Zhao Yun starts suspecting the person standing next to the car when they got in. Panicking, the driver says he's an innocent man and hasn't even gotten married yet. A while later, they stop in front to a strange abandoned house, and the driver says it seems like they've arrived. Our boy knows this is the work of someone from the Life Swap Club. Yuro asks if they're going to go inside. He says no, but as they start to leave, someone inside calls for help. Our boy tells her to ignore it, but Yuro says they can't abandon someone like that. He knows it's an obvious cliche, but he can't stop her. The blonde guy hiding behind the tree thinks they've caught another newbie in their trap. As they enter the basement, someone is calling for help. Our boy opens the hatch and Yuro says they need to go in and check it out. They walk down the stairs and the cries for help are coming from a door at the end. When they open it, they are both startled. A girl is tied up with chains and several others collapse to the ground, saying they're finally being rescued and begging for help. Yuro approaches and says they can't open it without a key. At that moment, everyone hears a strange noise. Yuro realizes her phone has no signal. Suddenly, some wolves appear in the room. 3 of them growl at our boy, but he's powered up and starts taking down the wolves with his bare hands. The wolves don't stand a chance against him. He even asks if this was the whole plan, but just then, Yuro stabs him with a needle in the back. The blonde guy enters and our boy says it was a good idea to use the dogs and take advantage of the chaos. The guy congratulates him, saying it's no wonder he earned so many points on his first try. Our boy thanks him for the compliment and says they can talk, but the guy asks if he really thinks he's in a position to negotiate. He mentions that next month is the annual life points competition in the club. At that time, people can negotiate points from anywhere in the world, and of course, weak newcomers are the main targets to steal points from. Our boy dodges another needle. He asks the guy if those needles are how he took control of people's bodies. The guy replies that although he dodged, his friend wasn't so lucky. Yuro, dazed, starts to drink something and liquid is dripping from her eyes. The guy asks if he wants to become a servant or watch her die. Our boy, unafraid, charges at him. The guy throws a barrage of needles, but our boy dodges them all. The fool wonders how someone who's only completed one mission could have such speed. And then our boy gives him a solid slap to the face. Grabbing him by the neck, he demands the antidote. The guy explains that it's just an aphrodisiac, so he doesn't need to worry about her life. The poor girl is collapsing to the ground, calling our boy's name, saying she's feeling hot. Excited, the guy says she's truly an exotic beauty. But our boy picks up a metal bar from the ground, swings it at the fool's arm, and demands the antidote again. Agonizing, the guy says he'll hand it over. With that, our boy quickly runs to give it to her. The guy can't understand why this dumb kid traded points for strength. Most people in the club exchange everything for luxury, which is why it's so easy to exploit beginners. Our boy then carries Yuro, who asks what happened. As the girls head off for revenge, he tells them they should leave. The fool asks what they're going to do, and they say they're just going to return the favor for what he did. Desperate, he begs for help, but our boy says he'll have to deal with it himself. As they leave, they hear the girls doing some very adult things to the guy. A while later, Yuro is back home. Seeing her brother, she asks what happened to him, why he's so beaten up. Our boy tells him it's not good to get involved in so many fights. Yuro already suspects that he probably got beat up for cheating. Ken starts shouting, saying it's all the fault of that scoundrel and tells him to get lost. Our boy asks how he can speak to family like that. It was the moment and Yuro introduces our boy as her new boyfriend. Ken, completely defeated, says he never imagined life could be so cruel. The two leave and the poor guy is left there, unable to move a muscle. He swears that scoundrel will regret stealing his employees, his sister, and his company. 3 days pass. Shuk Xu informs him that Han's company has cut all their negotiation channels, so they can't make any sales. She warns that if things continue like this, they won't last much longer. Zhao Yan asks how much impact that will have on them. She explains that based on how the contract was made, if Han wants, he could basically destroy them. He asks for more details about the financial situation. She informs him that they no longer have clients, no money to invest in getting new ones, and on top of that, the bank is asking them to return everything they borrowed soon. Just then, a window appears for our boy, announcing that the life points competition is about to begin. He tells her to leave, saying he needs some time to think about all of this. The system explains that once he confirms, his club points will be converted into season points. 1 club point equals 100 season points, and 200,000 in cash would cost one of these 100 points. Basically, he now had 500 season points. Additionally, this season, people could exchange points with each other for whatever they desired. Moreover, in this special season, participants could compete as individuals or as entire groups. It asks if he wants to participate. Zhao Yan realizes that this system is designed to screw over beginners and force them to become lackeys for stronger groups. If he stays alone, he'll be targeted by everyone, highlighting how unfair everything still is. The only way to make his enemies submit is by becoming stronger. And for someone like him who's been strengthening himself, this might not be such a bad opportunity. He then says of course he accepts. He checks the current rankings and notices that only solo players are listed. He realizes he'll first have to join a group to see their rankings. The girl then asks if he wants to participate in the mission to create the Abyss Dragon. Our boy knows that at this moment, no group will want someone like him with no points, so he decides to accept, hoping to earn more. With that, he's transmigrated. Immediately, he finds himself in the club's hall. A guy approaches, smoking a cigarette, and offers one to him, but our boy declines. The guy tells him to come along because Sue recommended him for a negotiation he might like. Our boy asks what's going on and if the guy is also participating in the current event. The guy explains that he's from 20 years ago and only people from this generation can join the event. Our boy says if he's been in the club for 20 years, he must be extremely influential. The guy says none of that matters because if he doesn't swap bodies soon, he'll die, so he's here to bet everything he has. Hearing this, our boy gets excited. This guy must have a lot of points. He asks why the guy chose him, and the man says Sue told him he had great potential. Half an hour later, the guy is shocked that our boy wrote an entire novel in the contract. The guy is impressed with how cautious people are these days. The guy's mission in life is to help the police take down the Zhao Shen gang and help his brothers live a good life. Apparently, this guy is an undercover cop, and our boy imagines that, at the very least, his life will be exciting. With that, the transmigration begins. 20 years ago in the Sea of Lin. In the middle of a rundown area in the slums, our boy begins to receive memories of the life of Liu Jianjun. He grew up in the outskirts, studied hard, and became a policeman who, at the same time, worked for the criminal underworld. It seems a major operation is happening, and a man named Hu Guangfeng plans to get rid of him as soon as the mission is complete. In this mission, he's working as a double agent for a madman named Zhao Shen. Apparently, today was the day to meet this guy, and his friends warn him it was very dangerous. But our boy tells them not to worry, he'll handle it. In this mission, he'll need to gain the trust of both sides while ensuring that his subordinates can live a good life. Just then, one of them informs him that Zhao Shen has arrived. As the man appears, our boy says it's an honor to meet him. Zhao Shen responds that it's a pleasure to meet him too, explaining that he had stayed hidden until now. Our boy then asks if it's time to make a move. The man says yes, it's time to teach someone a lesson. He shows a picture of the daughter of the richest man in the city and says she's worth at least a few billion. Zhao Yan asks if he's planning to kidnap her, while thinking to himself that this madman is about to do something crazy. Zhao knows he can notify the police at any moment. Zhao Shen says of course, but it's Zhao Yan who will be the one to kidnap her. Now he's in trouble because this is clearly a loyalty test. The man asks if he's afraid to do it. Our boy in this situation replies that of course he's not afraid. After all, they're brothers, so there's no reason to be scared. He assures them that they'll handle it. Zhao Shen gets up and leaves, saying he knew he could count on someone as reliable as him. If he needs anything, he should talk to a guy named De Bio, who will help him. De Bio introduces himself, and our boy tells him there's no need for formalities. But it's obvious that De Bio is just a spy to keep an eye on what he does. The scene shifts to the Golden Tiger nightclub. Our boy arrives with the goons, asking where a guy named Quan Long is. Immediately, someone rushes out saying they'll call him. Quan Long says he's in the middle of something and doesn't want to be disturbed, but our boy kicks the door open. Quan Long was in the middle of some fun. He asks if the intruder is looking to die. Zhao Yan comments that Quan Long seems to be getting quite influential. Quan Long quickly apologizes, saying that while he's influential, he's nowhere near as powerful as brother Liu. They're pretending to be friendly, but Quan Long used to work for the protagonist a long time ago and knows that he's in a bad situation now, so he doesn't want any more involvement. Our boy then says he's here to collect what his partner owed. Quan Long argues that it doesn't make sense since now that his partner is gone, those debts aren't his problem. Zhao Yan just wants to know if Quan Long is really going to run from the debt. Quan Long slams the table and asks who he thinks he is, coming into his bar to demand payment. Immediately, a gang shows up, asking the boss what the problem is. Quan Long says they were bold to send only 2 people. He flips the table, starting a brawl with everyone. Right away, the goon who entered with a Glock tells Quan Long to stay quiet. But of course, the enemies also have guns and a shootout begins. Our boy goes full Matrix, dodging bullets left and right. He takes out a bunch of goons, and even though they're useless, no one cares. He grabs Quan Long's phone to figure out where the money is and recover everything he stole. He informs the big boss, the one who gave the kidnapping mission, about what's happening. He asks if he knows who is Xiaoqi and says they're going to kidnap his daughter. The boss says that's crazy, but our boy explains it's part of the loyalty test Zhao Shen gave him. The boss asks if there's a specific time for the operation. Our boy asks if he's not worried about him and his subordinate since they could die in the kidnapping. The boss tells him not to worry, they'll make sure everything goes smoothly. But obviously, this mustache guy's plan is to get rid of the protagonist and use Shen, who hired him. However, our boy isn't dumb and knows this guy is plotting something. 3 days later, they're waiting for the girl's car to pass. De Bio, who's been acting as a spy, says this plan of his is a bit excessive. Our boy tells him that if he values his life, he can just sit back and watch. De Bio thanks him, saying that if that's the case, he'll wait for the good news. Meanwhile, in the car, the driver tells Miss Hu to act natural and not show any weaknesses. She, all beautiful, replies that if it's acting they want, she'll put on a great show. The driver assures her that even though it's a kidnapping, they'll ensure her safety. But she tells him he talks too much. Suddenly, a tree falls in front of the car. The driver gets out and tells everyone to make it look as realistic as possible. Our boy tells them not to hurt anyone, and they're confused, wondering why. He then says he's just kidding and tells them not to ask any more questions. The guy turns the fake kidnapping into an execution. At that moment, WO sends a message to the boss saying they should be careful with this guy. This whole thing about being a double agent for the police seemed impossible. This guy was the biggest gangster our boy had ever met, constantly getting into trouble. So our boy walks over to the car, introduces himself as the gentle kidnapper, and tells her to calmly come along for a trip. But Wanking says she knows his name is Jianjun and that he's working for Guangfeng. She's ready to make a deal, so it would be best for him to keep quiet. He's impressed that she has this information and seems interested. She says he has no choice because if he doesn't cooperate with her, she'll expose his identity as a double agent. Immediately, he's shaken. If she knows that, there's not much he can do. He just tells the guys to gag this crazy girl so they can get moving. Wanking knows that Jinjun, our protagonist, is just a pawn in the hands of those two guys, but it's precisely because he's a pawn that he's still valued. Then the guys on the ground start getting up. Obviously, their injuries were just ketchup splattered everywhere. In an isolated cabin, she says she wants to have a conversation with our boy. She asks if he knows that no double agent for Hugh and Guangfeng has ever survived a mission. She then says she not only can help him survive, but can also guarantee a much better position. Our boy doubts her and asks what kind of power she thinks she has. She's planning to kill Hu Xiaoqi, who, if he remembers correctly, is either her father or the richest man in the city. He's not sure, but he's scared. However, our boy gets excited because this might be the chance to take down all three of them at once. He says she seems eager for this cooperation, but first she'll have to answer some questions or it's not happening. First, if she's Hu Xiaoqi's daughter, why does she want him dead? She explains that her father and mother had some business dealings, but shortly after she was born, he planned and killed her mother along with the entire family. She only found out about the incident after she turned 18. Our boy then asks if she's not afraid he'll go and tell Xiaoqi about this. She says she's not scared because he seems more interesting than those guys. He wonders if she's also a member of the club. He then says he's curious about how this cooperation is supposed to work. He imagines she might not be part of the club since she doesn't have any points, and during this season, points should be visible. She tells him to get ready because she's going to explain everything. We don't get to hear the plan and time skips ahead. Later, a friend asks what the next plan is, and our boy says it's obvious. They're going to meet her father, Hu Xiaoqi. WO says the kidnapping is too recent for them to go collect from the guy. Our boy asks how he plans to collect the money and if he's too scared to go there. Trembling, WO says he's not scared. This kind of thing doesn't frighten him. The scene shifts to Hu Xiaoqi's mansion. It seems he's working with our protagonist's boss to eliminate Zhou Shen and our boy. Two goons enter, saying that two of his daughter's friends are here to see him. Hu Xiaoqi suspects some undercover agents working for Zhou Shen, so he knows he needs to be cautious. As soon as the guys enter, Xiaoqi says he doesn't remember his daughter having friends like them. Our boy introduces himself as Jianjun and says they're actually there because she owes a bit of money and they've come to collect. The father asks how much, and our boy says just 20 billion. Immediately, the old man is shocked. He thought it was supposed to be much less. Our boy then says he's being generous and will give him 5 hours to transfer the money. Xiaoqi says getting 20 billion in 5 hours is impossible. Jianjun then lowers it to 15 billion in cash and 5 in a transfer. To keep him motivated, he suggests talking to his daughter. 3 minutes later, Xiaoqi calls one of his employees and instructs them to transfer the 20 billion directly to the boy's account. As the old man starts to leave, our boy tells DeBio to keep an eye on him so he doesn't try anything funny. And they walk together, telling Miss Wonking's father not to pull any tricks. When they're alone, the father asks what's up with the price increase. Our boy says he'll need to introduce himself again. He's Jinjun, the guy saving his life. The extra 15 billion he's asking for is the price of saving him. The father asks what he's talking about. Our boy starts listing all the crimes he's committed and the people he's killed to maintain his business. The old man asks how he knows about all these crimes. Our boy says he knows that Xiaoqi is working with Guangfeng to kill him once this whole deal is over. However, he warns that if the 15 billion doesn't hit his account, he'll disappear from the city. The old man thinks this is all a setup by Hu Guangfeng, who's the only one who could know all of this. Back in the isolated cabin, our boy tells them to release the girl. Meanwhile, DeBio is reporting to Zhou Shen that the operation was a success. Zhou Shen comes in and tells our boy it's time for him to receive his honors because he's very happy with the results. Our boy says it'll truly be an honor for him. As he begins to reflect on his real life and the crises happening in his company, he remembers everything Secretary Su told him about the difficulties they're facing with negotiations. He starts imagining that maybe he could devise a plan that would work 20 years from now. The scene shifts to Zhou Shen's house. He praises our boy for having done such an incredible job without any issues. Our boy humbly responds that there's no need for such praise since he was just watching the guy's work. Zhou Shen then mentions that he asked for an extra 15 billion from the girl's father and says he can keep that money. He then reveals that the kidnapping was just a test as the real plan is to take over the entire city. Our boy asks what kind of test involves 20 billion being just the beginning. Zhou Shen apologizes but says that such information can't be disclosed yet. Our boy responds that it's all good as long as he and his friends get their share, the deal is done. Zhou Shen proposes a toast and says they'll meet again in 6 days to go over the details. Today was a day to celebrate the success of the kidnapping. A while later, our boy passes all the information about what happened to Hong, who tells him to be careful and ensure that no one finds out about him, all while thinking that as soon as this is resolved, he'll be the one to get rid of this kid. But Xiao Shen is already plotting and thinks that Huang has no idea what's coming. At that moment, one of the henchmen informs our boy that they've recruited everyone he asked for. Our boy congratulates them, telling them to save the rest of the money so they don't have to live this way any longer. Meanwhile, he wonders how he's going to assure his own success 20 years from now. Then he suddenly remembers someone who would be perfect for this plan. Wait, what is this? He went to talk to Mark Zuckerberg before he created Facebook. I think the author was having an off day when he wrote this, because of course our boy suggested that Mark Zuckerberg should create Facebook. After explaining everything, the lizard became interested. Our boy gave him several tips and future insights, and Zuckerberg wanted to thank him. But our boy told him to thank someone named Zhao Yan in 20 years. He also warned Zuckerberg about the metaverse, telling him not to get involved or he'd lose a lot of money. This plot twist is something else. What's going on here? Who's writing this? And wait, he went to talk to the guy who founded Xiaomi too. The guy said that Samsung and Nokia were too strong, and entering the smartphone market would be madness. But our boy gave him tips and then left, saying he knew what would happen in the future. The guy even went to talk to Steve Jobs. He warned him about the illness he'd suffer and told him to prepare. And as always, he told him to thank Zhao Yan 20 years from now. Oh my gosh, this guy doesn't stop. Next, he went to talk to the man who created electric cars. This guy's day must have 89 hours because he managed to meet with all of these people, and it wasn't even nighttime yet. Or maybe a few days had passed, and now it was time to meet with Xiao Shen again. In the truck, Xiao Shen said he'd explain the plan to everyone. They were after a metal called cow, which was worth over 200 million. On top of that, they'd let the entire city know that they had kidnapped that rich guy's daughter. And if he didn't pay 10 billion, they'd kill her. I'm a bit confused because I thought that girl had already been returned. But who knows at this point? Our boy isn't happy with this because now that everyone knows, things are getting complicated for him. But Xiao Shen told him not to worry.
I think you kinda like this video, so just subscribe and like.